Hello book fans, today I'm going to be reviewing a book that is the complete opposite of the recent book I read, Natasha Brown Assembly. Read that. If you're into reading this as well, don't read this. Ron Hubbard, it's a complete opposite of Natasha Brown's book, and this is Ron Hubbard. He's, spoiler alert, he's a terrible writer, but it is an enjoyable read, this. So I'm going to review two of his books here. I'm going to review this, which is Final Blackout, and also Battlefield Earth. Now, this is the one, if you're going to read any of his books, the one to read. Battlefield Earth is a lot longer, a lot more drawn out, a lot worse than this. But perhaps because it is longer and it reveals the limitations of Ron as a writer. So he is a bad writer, and perhaps the reason why I enjoyed this is because I was surprised at how much of a page turner it was, and that's the surprising part about it. It's about 280 pages, something like that. This was written in 1940. Now, this is a kind of alternative future, so let's imagine it's the 1970s. That's where we start this book. Now, this is where the British Expeditionary Force have gone into France, and they've basically remained there right up until, since the 1940s till 1970s, and at that point they're a ragtag group of British as well as other foreign kind of nationals war force. And you have the protagonist in this book is called the Lieutenant, and he is the same as every protagonist in every Ron Hubbard book, I imagine. I've only read two books, but the protagonists, at least as far as I can tell, are always extremely powerful, perfect, and they never do anything wrong. They're very one-dimensional. I think this is a limitation of Ron Hubbard's writing, in that the characters are very one-dimensional. But also the other limitation is that I suppose his plots are a little bit simple. We go from A to B. We don't go through from A to B to C to D in order to get to Z or something. You know, it's very straightforward and reasonably predictable for the most part. One thing that I will give you is that there are some twists in the book which are quite interesting little diversions. So it does work as a read. It's probably a holiday read that you want to read through quite quickly. But imagine the alternate future then. So you got London you got 1975. So you've got the Lieutenant. He's over in British Expeditionary Force. He's got a ragtag group of soldiers. He's winning the battles still, but winning them his way, because he's the perfect man. And he's got these generals above him, of course he has, and they are basically posed as clueless individuals who have power for no apparent reason, which I think is quite funny, because Ron Hubbard was a captain in the US Navy during the war, and he got he was the captain of a ship twice that I know of, actually. No, he was a captain of a ship twice, during which time he got taken off his command. So he had his command taken off him one time because I think he attacked Mexico, at the coast of Mexico for some reason, and then another time because he was a few thousand miles away from his destination. So very odd individual. Couldn't command a urine up in a brewery, basically. Ron Hubbard, that's him in the war, it seems, at least from Wikipedia, as a character. But also he's very good with people. So I think he is very good with characters, and specific characters. So he's good at telling a story to certain people about certain characters, I think. And I think that's why he's done so well with Scientology, because he's the founder of Scientology. And he has got people to donate money to his various causes, including a world trip in a yacht, that kind of thing, and also had interesting affairs in regards to his relationship. And he also had a son who, I think, had some kind of interesting occurrence where his son tried to do something similar to his dad. Anyway, he's an interesting character, so I don't get sued. I'm not going to say what I think of him as an individual, but I think you can probably read between the lines there. So Ron Hubbard, Final Blackout. I think this Lieutenant guy is a good character in the way that he's straightforward. he's kind of your man's man. So if you're a white male, probably particularly, you're going to enjoy the perspective this gives you. And it's got this idea of this leader who puts himself in danger, puts himself before his own. He won't do anything that he would not expect any of his underlings to do for him. So he's always the first in danger. It's like when they're doing a full frontal assault, he'll be the first out of the trench and running at them, with mainly because he's got a bulletproof cloak and some kind of helmet that's magically bulletproof as well, which exists in the 1970s, but it is a future materials, future changes. And this bulletproof cloak is hilarious because it's like a mesh, so it's like a cloak, it's a material, but it is bulletproof, so it wraps it around him and the bullets are captured within it. And yet, despite being incredibly flexible, like a cloak, it doesn't take the impact from the bullets and cause bruised ribs or broken ribs even, and it's all sorts of injuries that you would still get without it, without that cushioning beneath, which he doesn't have. So yeah, I think that's quite funny, but it's good. I think science fiction wise, I mean, it's like a future war. I think that's a really interesting perspective. And also you've got a pandemic that's been roaring around as well. I think that's pretty good that he's been exiled, and to France. In France is where he's been exiled to remain, because back home you've got a communist, this is the funny bit, you've got a communist state has taken over in the UK, and you've still got a capitalist state in Russia, I think, at this point. So he's fighting Russians, and he's fighting, I think he's fighting Germans and all sorts of things. They've got basically groups of people romping around, limited resources. He's trying to find food for his troops and water, etc. And he's trying to just survive. And his generals are trying to trip him up because they are like depicted as these stupid people who are not willing to put themselves in danger, and they are just going to give him orders without taking the risks themselves, but they'll still take the benefits of his victories. So yeah, I think it's a good simplistic read, and from start to finish I did enjoy it actually, and I anticipated enjoying the science fiction even more. So imagine how disappointed I was when I got the true proper Bo Selector science fiction. So this book in itself, although it is quite simplistic, I think because it's entertaining, the characters are straightforward, like his underlings are quite rare and kind of they're quite weird in a way and quite aggressive, but he still manages to control them where other leaders would not control them. That's the whole overall message. He's perfect, he's indestructible, he wins at all costs, and even when he makes a mistake, but even when he makes a mistake, it's not really a mistake. Ooh! So yeah, good book. Read it, 3 out of 5 experience, probably worthwhile reading, but it's L. Ron Hubbard, you've got to put up with the gash as well, so it's going to be, some of you are going to think this is a 1 out of 5 experience. You need to be deep into L. Ron to want to read it and have a reason to. But his other book, now this is one I don't recommend whatsoever. If you're going to read one L. Ron, read that one. End of review, hooray! Let's go on to the Battlefield Earth, a saga of the year 3000. Now this was his masterpiece. It's 1,000 pages long. Now I've read Les Miserables, or Les Miserables, as they say, and it took me about a year to read. Not as long as Darwin, that took even longer. It took me ski trips to finish that. And Hunchback of Notre Dame, that was an easier read, but still a big book. This is nothing like that. Battlefield Earth. I don't have Battlefield Earth, so I can't wave it in front of the screen, but this is nothing like that. There's a film which I've not seen. Apparently the film's a piece of crap, and this is good. But honestly, I don't see how the film can be any worse. I really don't. Now the main problem is, this is 300 pages long. That's good, but that is the limit. I'd say 300, maybe 400 pages max is where L. Ron Hubbard's limitations are as a writer, because it gets heavily repetitive. The plots are heavily repetitive. It keeps going through a cycle of nonsense, and once you've gone through one, I mean, I can see how it should be a few books, and maybe if you pace it out and only read, like, if it was 3 books, maybe I wouldn't notice so much. But as it's one book, it's heavily noticeable. It's heavily tedious once you've got past 300 or 400 pages. Now, what's it about? So, Battlefield Earth is the future Earth. This is like, is it 1,000 years in the future? 3,000, obviously. It's the clues in the name, numpty. 3,000. So, at this point, the world has been taken over by the Cyclos. These are an alien race, an aggressive alien race, who have taken over the Earth in order to extract the resources from mines. And they're also quite a cruel race as well. So they're nasty, and they've exterminated most of humanity. You've just got pockets of humanity. I don't know, about 5,000 people left on the whole planet from different races that have remained. You've got people in China, Australia, in Europe, America, that kind of thing. The Scotch are still in it. Awesome, but he says nothing about the Welsh, the Mold Freaker, so I'm assuming the Welsh bought it, unfortunately, for the Welsh to Cymru. So it's really interesting, a brilliant idea. I think he's really good at this idea, and I think he's thought it out really well. Give him his dues on that, but just the implementation, it should have been done by a different writer who was good. I think it's beyond his scope, and if someone had rewritten it, I mean, maybe, and changed the story a little bit, it could have been a good read. But as it is, and let's face it, rewriting it would be horrific. I wouldn't want to be on that job, rewriting this book. That would be terrible. I don't even know how he would do it once it's down in paper. But the idea is, year 3000, you've got this guy called Johnny Goodboy. He's in a small kind of village up in the mountains. Now, this is the interesting bit. It's a radioactive kind of mountain range, as you get radiation from the mountains. This affects childbirth, so you get some deformities in children. And one of his arch rivals, his first kind of arch rival, is this guy called Limper Brown. And this is why I think it's a little bit of like a book that Adolf Hitler would enjoy. Because Limper Brown, because he was disabled, it seems, it doesn't say it's because he was disabled, but it seems like because of his disability, he's been discriminated against, and especially via Johnny Goodboy. Now, he thought Johnny Goodboy was cruel to him and bullied him as a child, and therefore he hates him and does everything in the book to bring Johnny Goodboy down. He doesn't do a lot to help out, to work with Johnny Goodboy to fight against the real enemy, the aliens. So I think that is a bit weird and odd, even in an adversarial kind of perspective. But Johnny Goodboy, he's got blonde hair, blue eyed. He gets the woman. He has the woman there. He has the people who look up to him. Limper Brown. The people, they're not against him, but they clearly probably don't like him as much as Johnny Goodboy Tyler. So he's a nemesis in that way. But he takes a back seat during the first part of the book because it's all about this guy called Turl. Now, this is the Turl is an alien, and he's a particularly cruel alien. He loves. I mean, generally the males of the species tend to love torturing their enemies, or just any random people they pick up. They can torture them, flail them alive, basically, but they love it. They're essentially psychopaths, so maybe that's why he called them Cyclos. Now, this book was written in 1982, which is 40 years after this book. This book was called Visionary for the time it was written. Maybe it is a bit. But this book was even more visionary, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% really. I think it was visionary in that you have these the space vehicles. You've got an idea of all this ore gets mined and it gets teleported to the home system of Cyclo. Only one home system, and many planets in up to 6 universes, sending commodities and goods back, back to this home planet. I don't know how the hell they manage all that, but that's how it happens. Now, one thing that they have is these Cyclos, they have something they call breathe gas. So they can't breathe the Earth's atmosphere, they have breathe gas. But they fear uranium, so hence this is where Goodboy Tyler comes in by talking about training up humans to work these mines and that kind of thing. He puts in that perspective because he can help out this Turl guy he's a really limited character. He's evil for a start, and he always talks about leverage. He's very repetitive. He talks about leverage. I must have leverage, but I don't have leverage. And the way he wants to get leverage on Johnny Goodboy Tyler is through his friends and family, but he needs Goodboy Tyler to work in these mines in order to get the uranium, because there's uranium, but there's also gold, which will make Turl a lot of money. And he's got to always talk about leverage. But yeah, it's kind of simplistic in that way. It's kind of annoying, and there are other Cyclos that are not like that. Only one. There was one cycle that isn't like that, isn't a nut job. But I think it's really simplistic. You've got this evil race, good race, and the evil race, and in this way it's got some duality, some parallels to I mean, it does have some parallels to recent history, World War II history, in that you have the Cyclos that are these overlords of humanity. In the same way, you had this perception, which still kind of exists, I think, with some people, that you have a certain religious group of people who are controlling American politics, for example, and the Germans felt the same thing back in the war, or I should say the other word rather than the Germans, but wartime Germans, World War II Germans. I'm not going to use the N word, basically. But yeah, there is a parallel there. Now, I'm going to go into spoilers at this stage, so I should give you my number for this book. So it's either, I mean, it's probably a 1 out of 5, but I'll give it a 2 out of 5 experience for Battlefield Earth. That's based on the amount of science in there, the technicality of mining and future mining, and the kind of technology, the spacecraft and the craft that get around the Earth. For that reason, you've got 2 out of 5 rather than 1 out of 5, because the science fiction bit of it is very, very good, very well thought out, but the implementation, the actual writing is terrible. And it's not terrible, actually, I shouldn't say terrible. It's similar to this book. The first 300 pages, it's pretty good. It's one-dimensional, but as soon as you get beyond that first third of the book, it becomes increasingly terrible, because it's just a repetition of Johnny Goodboy Tyler and his crew, spoiler alert, fighting against a particular enemy, and then them winning, because Johnny Goodboy Tyler has blonde hair, blue eyes. He's an Aryan, therefore he's perfect. He's perfect in every way. He's intelligent and yet physical. He's a hunter, got expert hunting skills. He's an engineer, he's a mathematician. He's all these things. I don't know of anybody who is capable of all those at the top level. I mean, absolute expert. No way anybody's like that on this earth. But he is, because he's Aryan. And maybe this reflects on L. Ron Hubbard's views about those blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, which I find a little bit disturbing, and don't like that whatsoever. That's a big negative for me, big negative for this particular book. Also, it's simplistic, because it's like they have one planet controlling all the solar system. So what does Johnny Goodboy Tyler does? Puts a few nuclear warheads that he finds onto the platform, zaps them planets. It's a planet Cyclo. He does a genocide, exterminates all the Cyclo race entirely, 100%. And then, yes, the blonde-haired, blue-eye wins. But in fairness to L. Ron Hubbard, there's a load of different nationalities and races that get together. You've got the Chinese, the Scotch people, the Americans, who all work together, and I think there's some Africans who work together for the future of humanity. So in fairness to him, he's not presenting a case for Aryan people being the supremacy, even though they are supreme. He's not saying they are the ones that are making up the future world. So that's kind of good. That's a positive. So while I don't think he is an N-word person, he does have views that seem to go along with that. And I don't think Adolf Hitler would be disappointed at reading this book, especially as his writing skill is pretty terrible as well, so he would enjoy reading a book. This is not a book that Adolf Hitler would have burnt, let me put it that way, but it's not a book that he would have written either. You know, it is a 1980s book, it is modern in many elements, but the background, the underlying kind of plot is kind of also a little bit disturbing in a way when you look at it and look at the parallels of this controlling race. Also, I should say the Cyclo race, they have chips in the brain that makes them evil and cruel. So if you take the chips out, but Johnny Goodboy Tyler does not remove the chips from the Cyclo's brains, does not make them into moral, decent people or aliens again. What he does, he exterminates every more freaking one of them, because he says he doesn't say they're all bad, it's just a simple solution, and it is a genocide of a race that's above another race, a species that's above another species, I suppose. They're calling them subhuman, I suppose, but they do have humanistic characteristics, some of the characters. So it's a bit of an uncomfortable read from that perspective, but if you don't think about it, which I didn't at the time, then I did a little bit, then it's okay, but 1,000 pages, it's way too much. I really can't recommend it at all. But it's, as I said, it's a 2 out of 5 experience based on what we have here. It's a, you know, for its time, science fiction wise, it's interesting. Culturally, I suppose it has some merit, and you know, it's by the founder of Scientology. If you want to know some of his beliefs and some of his traits, I think we can read into how he felt about certain elements in society based on the way he writes in that particular book. And you probably don't need to read any other book once you've read that one book, but I wouldn't recommend it. For 1,000 pages is way too long. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the L. Ron Hubbards. I'm not going to be reading any others. I'm glad I didn't get that 10-book trilogy. 10 trilogy. How do you pronounce that? But there was 10 books on a different science fiction. I'm glad I didn't get those from the bookshop, because I'd have to read them, and that would have been horrific, to be quite honest. So do read this one. Don't read the other one, is what you want to take from this review. And if you want to debate about what you feel is right about, if you think I've misrepresented L. Ron Hubbard, drop it in the comments, and I'll tell you why you're wrong, if you fancy that. Yeah, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've got it all completely wrong, which I don't think I have. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the L. Ron Hubbard books. I hope you found this review useful. I hope you enjoyed it, at least. And if you think L. Ron Hubbard's a great writer as well, then tell me why, because I'd really be curious to understand your perspective on that. But as I've said why this is an enjoyable read, and it's nothing to do with him being a good writer as such. It's to do with him being a decent kind of storyteller and telling simplistic stories to people who are in a certain phase, a good phase, to be able to receive that kind of story. So thank you very much for watching. Have a most excellent day if you are reading L. Ron Hubbard today.